Good afternoon and welcome to the latest Milwaukee Press Club virtual Newsmaker. I'm your host, Milwaukee Press Club President Corey Hess from Wisconsin Public Radio. Sports fans, I have 4 executives from your favorite teams today. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsors. Our presenting sponsor is Spectrum News One. Sustaining sponsor, Miller Quass. Our event partner is WisPolitics.com. WisPolitics partners with the Press Club for this luncheon as part of its ongoing series in Milwaukee, which is sponsored by UW-Milwaukee, Wisconsin Academy of Global Education and Training, 1125 at Pabst, Milwaukee Police Association, the Firm Consulting, the Medical College of Wisconsin, and Spectrum. Once again today, we've got Peter Feigin, president of Milwaukee Bucks, John Greenberg, president of the Milwaukee Admirals, Rick Schlesinger, president of business operations for the Brewers, and Mark Murphy, president and CEO of the Green Bay Packers. Thanks, guys, for being here. We're really excited to have you. They're going to chat today with Jen Lada from ESPN about how the pandemic has affected their business and news of the day. So, Jen, have at it. Thank you for being here.
I appreciate this. This seems like an unprecedented gathering of so many great people in the Milwaukee and Wisconsin sports community. So I'm happy to be handling the Q&A portion of this program. You know, guys, there was an announcement this morning that crossed my Twitter feed that involved a lot of you guys. So I think that that's a really timely place to start. The announcement was, of course, that the Bucks, the Brewers, the Packers, and Microsoft are forming the Equity League. This is a division of the VC fund, which I had to look up because my knowledge of that basically extends to what I see on Billions on Showtime, but that is Titletown Tech, which is designed to create opportunities for Black and Latino founders. Mark, I'll start with you. Can you explain what that is?
Sure. Thanks to the Brewers and the Bucks and Microsoft, we all came together to form the initiative that we're calling the Equity League. But it's an extension of Titletown Tech, which is our partnership with Microsoft. And Titletown Tech, it's a fund as well as an innovation lab. We have 25 million. We've invested in 21 different companies. And this is really an extension that's going to be focused on companies founded and run by either Blacks or Hispanics. And then we'll also invest in companies that will remove barriers for Hispanics and Blacks, as well as create new opportunities. So we're excited about it. I think, obviously different motives for all of us, but I do really think what happened this summer with the Jacob Blake shooting in Kenosha was kind of an inflection point for all of us. And, we're all doing everything we can, and we talk and we bring attention to social justice issues and racial inequality. But I think from that point on, at least from the Packers' perspective, it was really time to take action and to make a positive change and to make an impact. And it's exciting. It's not often that professional teams come together like this, particularly to address social justice issues. I'm really proud of all of the organizations, and the other thing I'd say is Microsoft is just tremendous. I mean, it just lends so much credibility. So we were excited to be able to have the announcement today, and it looks like we're getting a really good positive publicity across the country.
This is a question I'll ask to the entire panel. So we'll start with you, Rick, and then we'll move through the other gentlemen there. But what has been the most complicated or difficult hurdle to overcome during this unprecedented year in sports?
Hi, Jen. Wow, I think it's been just a very challenging year for us in March when we realized that our season was going to be disrupted. We had to start thinking about different financial models and figuring out how many games we could play, when we could start the season, what the economics of that season would look like. It required a lot of negotiation with the Players Association and frankly, a lot of discussion among the teams. We have teams in 20 states around the country. Each of them had different protocols, rules, restrictions, and guidelines about navigating through the pandemic. We ultimately reached a resolution to play a very condensed season with no fans. I would say the biggest challenge is literally trying to navigate financially through a season when you generate no admissions revenue, which for the Brewers is our number one source of revenue. And obviously dealing with the loss of employment for so many full-time and part-time workers who work 81 games at Miller Park, and whose livelihoods depend on baseball games, not just the people at the ballpark, but the surrounding restaurants, hotels, bars, all the businesses that were impacted negatively by the absence of a game attendance. And it's been a really trying year. We learned a lot about our organization, learned a lot about ourselves. It's not something I want to go through again. I don't wish this upon any organization. And again, it's extremely difficult. We're one business among thousands that have been really disrupted by the pandemic. And I think we all share an appreciation of how much it means to have engagement with our fans and with our customers. And that was lost for the entire season. So a lot of challenges and a lot of things we need to try to move on and try to get to a better place.
John, was your franchise's biggest issue financial as well?
Oh, for sure. When we got shut down in the middle of March, we were just about to head into a weekend with a sellout crowd, and one of our biggest gates of the year, just have that go away, and losing our last 8 home games and what would have been a long playoff run. This team that's in the picture behind me was poised to win a championship, much like Peters. Just that momentum all go away. Then trying to find a way to keep people engaged, season ticket holders continuing to make investment in the organization with the hope that we'd get back to playing again in October. And then that got pushed to December, and now has been pushed to February. So just finding a way to stay out there in front of people. And, I'm just grateful for people sticking with us, or whether they're our corporate partners or our season ticket holders. People have really been loyal and to a really an amazing level to be able to stick with us until we can tell them that they can come and watch Admirals hockey again. So we took a PPP loan, which really helped us to kind of stay afloat until December. And now we're at the point where our owner, Harris Tur, has had to make it, his own investment to keep us going, to try and stay in business until we can.
Peter, I think when people look around and take inventory of what went on this summer, the NBA bubble was by and large a success. What were the biggest takeaways that you as a franchise can take from that success story and implement in the season going forward?
Yeah, I think how you approach, uncharted waters, and how do you navigate it through process and through best practices. And the greatest thing about the NBA, it's truly a collaborative. So, all lessons learned in Orlando were certainly passed on to our own little, regional bubbles, which we're experiencing now. So, I think one of the biggest challenges, obviously beyond financial, is really how to lead and kind of gather our teams in good form and in good mental health, and really resource people in a way we've never had to resource before. And while we're doing most of it virtually, so not different from the rest of the world, but kind of we also are trying to operate in kind of the surreal world of COVID in a challenging place. But we had the advantage. Orlando was one of these incredible accomplishments, that happened. So I think we're cautiously optimistic that we at least have a good baseline to go forward on protocol to start up the season.
Well, Jen, I think we've all learned that it's very hard to play sports during the pandemic, and like Rick said, I hope we never have to do it again. I think we've learned quite a bit, and we were very fortunate in that we were able to learn and see what baseball, basketball, and hockey did. We took a real hard look at the concept of a bubble. It didn't make sense for us given the length of our season and that we only play once a week. So for us, it's really been at the core of, well, number one, we have a number of different protocols, and I think all the leagues do. And we learn as we're going along, but testing is kind of at the core for us. We test not only all of our players, anybody they call tier 1 and tier 2 employees, anybody who is in contact with players and coaches is tested on a daily basis. And, by and large, I mean, I think there have been about 18 or 19 NFL games that have been rescheduled. We had a little trouble around Thanksgiving. There was one game that ended up playing on a Wednesday afternoon. But we haven't canceled a game yet. I look at it, trying to see what the colleges, college football and college baseball are trying to do, or college basketball. They just don't have the same resources that we do, and you've just seen so many more cancellations. But so far, we've made it through. We got 3 games in the regular season left, and like Rick said, it's a financial hit for everybody. And our games, it's just really weird. Just seeing games at Lambeau Field without fans. For the last 2 home games, we have had family and friends just to try to test out our protocols. I think we had 500 people, and actually it made a little bit of a difference just having some people in the stands. But it's been a very strange year. And the other thing I would say, we've really seen across the league the importance of following the protocols. Where we've had a couple situations across the league where you can always trace it back to where there are outbreaks. There was a breach of the protocols. And a couple things in Baltimore. Their strength coach apparently is he's a anti-masker, so he didn't believe in masks, and he also came into work 2 days with symptoms. So obviously that's against protocols. And then in Denver, there was a mini outbreak because all 4 quarterbacks met without masks, and one of the players had tested positive. So, there's a reason to have the protocols, and we don't all like it, but you need to follow them. And if you do, you have the best chance of being able to make it through the whole season without serious interruptions.
Well, I'm glad you bring up the impact of having fans in the stands, because obviously you mentioned the last few games, there's been a few people, family and friends who've been allowed. I talked to one of your players last week who says Lambeau and the surrounding area is like a ghost town. Now, that's not breaking any news. Obviously, it's a very different environment that we're in now, but that the players have to bring their own juice. So walk me through some of those conversations, Mark, that you and people in the Packers organization have had, because we do see fans in stands of other stadiums around the country. Why are the Packers deciding not to expand the number of fans?
Well, I'd say it's a couple things. It's been a decision that we've made in conjunction with our local health authorities, and quite honestly, Wisconsin and Green Bay in particular, our community infection rate is at one point. Now, this was a month ago, was 4 times that of the second-ranked city in terms of how bad the infection rate was. So we've really been a hot spot. And I think the other thing, I mean, we would love to have fans, but the risk is very high. And one of our concerns is, if you do have fans, you're going to have people flying in from across the country, potentially bringing the virus. We're also very concerned about our players' families coming across the country and potentially infecting their sons. So the most important thing for us, and we're a little different than Rick and the Brewers, 2/3 of our revenue comes from our broadcast, our national TV contract. So that's really been the focus, is to get the games on. But you're right, it's a very different atmosphere. And the players, and I know Matt LaFleur has really talked to the players about it. You can't rely on the fans to get you going. I mean, it's got to be, they've got to bring their own energy. And I think we've done a much better job of that the last few home games.
Rick, I saw that Commissioner Rob Manfred said that MLB clubs cannot afford to go another season without fans in the stands. And I know that there will be fans in some stands, but it depends, as Mark referred to, on the local municipalities. What conversations are you guys having, and where are the Brewers at right now with that conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very envious of many things that Mark and his organization have, but that national television contract certainly is something I would love to have with MLB. We rely, a vast majority of our revenue is from ticket sales and fans in the stands. So obviously the economics are very daunting. I think teams in MLB recognize that 2020 was sort of a unique situation, and we wanted to get a season in. We got a shortened season, and we paid the players their full per game rate for 60 games. Not a great financial model for the teams, but recognizing that it's a product of a negotiation with the players. I think for 2021, there's just a lot of different dynamics at play. Number one is from my perspective, if there's an opportunity for us, not just in Milwaukee, but across the league to have fans in the stands, if we can do so, and we start the season a little bit later, that to me is a logical thing to do. Even if we have a somewhat shortened season, to have an opportunity to have fans in the stands from the first game would be a tremendous thing, not only for the players, but also for our revenue. And there's no scenario under which it's going to be a great season financially for us in 2021, simply because we know there's going to be restrictions. There's going to be additional costs associated with all the protocols, all the testing, all the retrofitting to the ballpark to accommodate fans. But the reality is economically, there's a pathway there in conjunction with the Players Association to make the financial hit less severe on the teams. And at the end of the day, I think the players recognize that the more the teams are financially in better shape, that's better for their pocketbook as well. Because at the end of the day, player salaries do have a nexus to club revenues, and the more the clubs are healthy financially, the more revenues can flow to the players. So it's just a matter of working out the details.
I'd say our biggest difference, Jen, is John and I deal with inside, the arena, format and environment, which is even more challenging. So when you look at percentages of fans, modified audience, we think of filtration and ventilation like a little bit more as we look to evolve past like modified fans. And I'd say all of us are kind of have our finger on the pulse of what does vaccine passports and tracing look like in the future? What does testing look like? And how do we track that? How do we integrate it with our ticketing systems? And how do we continue to kind of promote, safe and healthy environments? And we're all kind of under the same umbrella here in Wisconsin. I don't see a horizon in the next, 4 to 8 weeks. It really changes kind of where we are with attendance.
Okay, so this is something for everyone on the panel, because I think that it's a huge part of what's happening in sports, but I don't know if it's being discussed a lot by a lot of people. So let's talk about the mental element of what your athletes have been going through and what their families have been going through. What are some of the things that you guys have done from a franchise standpoint to support your athletes and their families, kind of from the mental health standpoint? Because I know that this is affecting everyone, but what responsibility do you guys have as the franchises to make sure that everybody is doing okay mentally through this? Peter, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think we learned a lot through, the rest of the world going into quarantine and stay at home. I mean, providing resources from mental health advisors online to what we did down in the bubble to really create employee resource groups and how do we get people together and how do we talk through this like really challenging time. I don't think there's much empathy for pro athletes who are making the money they make and being able to play, and they don't really think about kind of what does it mean to be confined on a campus for 80 to 90 days when you're in your 20s and you're, an A-type personality that needs to, go out and go crazy. We had real kind of concerns and real issues that we had to kind of attack and resource and fix, some with professionals, some within our own organization. And I think what's great is, and what you're leading to is kind of where mental health is on on the radar screen for everybody. And I think the good news is it's there, and we're very conscious about it, and we're trying to proactively kind of get about it. How do we talk about it? How do we resource our guys in a big way? And it's throughout the entire organization. So just what you said, it's our coaches, it's our players, and it's their families to go through it as well. So much like other organizations around the country and the world, like we have kind of jumped into the deep end of kind of mental health resourcing and knowledge and continually to improve to help our folks out.
John?
Sure. Well, our players are all Nashville Predators employees, so I know that Nashville has been very, very much in tune with all of their players who are spread out all over the globe, and making sure that they're keeping their mental health as strong as possible. That's a big initiative in the NHL, and certainly throughout all of this, Nashville has been very much on top of that. Locally, that's a big part of our weekly staff meeting that we have with our full-time staff here. We've actually kept our entire staff on throughout this. So, we've been talking with them every week. On my list of things to talk about is health, whether it's physical health, mental health, emotional health. It's on our list every week. And we've provided resources for our staff and their families to go through this in the best possible way. This is a very unique environment for our people. I mean, I've got people who have been with us for 40 years, and I've got people who are in their first jobs. And so, we're all here trying to pitch in and help each other. But when we need that little bit of extra help, we utilize whatever tools, frankly, our benefits program offers to make sure that our people are in the right place and their families are in the right place, because they're our most valuable asset is our staff. So we want to make sure they're in good mental and physical health.
Jen, it's a great question. I mean, and then the mental health aspect of this is crucial. And it's not just for as Peter said. I mean, they're professional athletes. Nobody's feeling sorry for them. But number one, the job itself is a lot of pressure, and they're so isolated now, much more than we've thought a lot about. You want to have camaraderie events and team bonding events, and then you think, well, we really can't do that, away from the facility. So the other thing, like John said, you worry not only about their mental health, but their physical health. And one of the things we're going to do is really make a big push, and we're going to work with the league on this, is making sure when the vaccines are available that people actually, utilize and are willing to take the vaccine. I think that's because some of the surveys I've seen say it's, maybe 50% might decide not to take the vaccine. That's something that, I don't want to get into politics, but I think for the good of our country, we need everybody who's able, that qualifies, to be able to take vaccines.
Yeah, Jen, and I think what Mark said about the isolation, I mean, the biggest problem I think our players had was just the disconnection between themselves. Baseball's a grind, 162 games over 183 days. There's a routine, but there's also opportunities for the players to interact. All that was taken away. There was no engagement with the fans. Our players constantly talked about how they derive energy from the fan experience. And as Mark said, the players this year had to get that adrenaline and drive from within, because they're not getting it from an empty ballpark or an empty stadium. And it affected our players. I mean, if you look at, in particular, our offense, I really think that our players, our hitters, will tell you that they struggled because the energy of the crowd was lacking, and it was just an odd, non-routine kind of environment. I think what we're trying to do is have touch points with our players and fans to try to do things. We've tried to engage our fans. We certainly have tried to help the players emotionally, but there's a toll. There's no question about it, that this season put a toll on everybody, and it was hard to navigate. And that's frankly why we want to do everything we can in 2021 to ensure that we've got, people in the stands and a little more return to sort of the rituals and regularity that baseball is built on.
I just want to go behind the curtain here for a moment, guys. As you're speaking, my husband popped in front of the.
I think her husband cut off her microphone.
We cannot hear you.
I know what she's going to say, so it was good that she went on.
Jen, we can't hear you, Jen.
Can you guys hear me at all? Hello?
Yeah,
There you go.
can.
Now we got you.
You got me. Well, gotta love technology in 2020 as well, since we rely on it so heavily. I was saying that my husband flagged me down, saying that there is a report out there that Giannis is signing the Supermax, and since we have Peter Feigin sitting here on our panel, I would be remiss not to say, Peter, can you confirm or deny a report about Giannis signing a Supermax deal with the Milwaukee Bucks?
Giannis who? Yeah, I would. And again, I was just texting with a bunch of people in this audience who asked the same thing, and my answer is I am so loyal to the press corps and so respect what you all do that I'm just happy to be here.
I'm just here so I don't get fined. That's another line that I like to rely on. It's guys, because we are so lucky in this state to have so many
Jen, can I read you a tweet that was just sent by Giannis? This is my home. This is my city. I am blessed to be able to be part of the Milwaukee Bucks for the next 5 years. Let's make these years count. The show goes on. Let's get it. Boom, boom.
All right, Peter, when you read that to us, how does that make you feel?
Well, Rick and Mark will probably share the same. I think I'm going to get off this call. And this is one of these things that we've been anticipating. As you can imagine, Giannis is a generational player. What it means to the Milwaukee Bucks, what it means to our market and to our team, what it means to me personally and professionally. I mean, it's hard to really state like the importance of it. This is it's a monumental kind of event, and sports are so crazy and interesting, and it's so human that things like this happen. So this is like one of the great days in Bucks history. So this is a really great moment. I am so glad I was able to share the 30 seconds with you. I'm going to go call my wife and circle the troops and have a little shouting party and get prepared for something in a little bit, but really appreciate it, and we're very excited. It doesn't get better than this announcement in December in a year that's so tough. This is really great news.
Peter, thank you for taking the time with us. We understand completely that you have other things you need to tend to right now, but really lucky for us that we were able to share that moment with you.
Great. Bye-bye.
Congratulations.
All right, guys, well, it's down to us. I don't have any breaking news of that impact. Frankly, I'm not sure that any of us agree with that. But let's just talk for a moment about the impact that an athlete like Giannis, and look, we've all been there where we've had people come through the franchises who are change makers. Aaron Rodgers, going back to Christian Yelich, obviously with the Brewers as well. What does a once in a generation athlete like Giannis, like those guys, mean to a franchise?
Well, I would say we've been blessed. We had two of those back to back play quarterback for the Packers. So to go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, pretty amazing. I think, and each sport's a little different. Obviously, basketball, I think one player can make such a huge difference. In our game, the quarterback's the one position that can really make a difference. Ideally, and I think Rick will probably, and Peter would too, obviously you want to compensate your best players, but you'd like to pay for future performance rather than past performance. And I think that's one of the nice things about Giannis is he's young enough that his best years are still ahead of him. And, you know, the other thing, when you pay that kind of money, you better have good insurance policies. That's the one thing you worry about, you know, when Aaron Rodgers broke his collarbone, like you worry about it, but no, I mean, and yeah, they make such an impact on, and they're the kind of athletes that they make everybody else better. And we're seeing that with Aaron this year. I mean, he's playing, you know, he's just turned 37. He's playing at probably as high a level as he had and as he has had in his career. And you know, everybody complains that we don't have good receivers. Well, Aaron is making a lot of those receivers look pretty good. That's what great players do.
Yeah, Jen, I think you know, again, for Giannis to stay in Milwaukee, for Aaron Rodgers to be a fixture in Wisconsin, and you know, for us to sign Yelich, you know, I think, you know, teams are built on personalities and players, and extraordinary athletes, you know, drive and generate extraordinary, you know, fan engagement. And you know, we in Milwaukee, at least in baseball, have always had a challenge keeping, you know, the stars, because the economics of our sport are just unfortunately, you know, not aligned with small markets or medium markets being able to afford to keep, you know, high priced talent. And we've lost a lot of great players. I mean, people still come to me and complain about Paul Molitor leaving for the Toronto Blue Jays, and I'm like, that was before I was.
Get over it.
Sorry about that, but. You know, so, but Mark's right. I mean, you got to have good insurance, and you do want to pay for future performance and not for past, because at least in baseball, in our sport, you know, one player, as great as Christian isn't going to, you know, unilaterally turn the Brewers into a World Series champion. So we need to make sure we surround Christian with really good players. And it's a challenge in our sport, frankly, because of the way the economics work and the way the salary structure works. But for great players to stay in the Midwest and stay in Wisconsin, I think it helps cement the relationship that you have with your fans. At the end of the day, it's incumbent upon the organization then to make sure that we fill the team around these star players so that we can compete for championships. The Bucs certainly have done that. The Packers have done that. Aaron Rodgers is playing at a level that, frankly, is astonishing. You know, he's probably the most valuable player in the NFL right now. No disrespect to the guy in Kansas City, but if you look at what the Packers have with Aaron Rodgers, we are so blessed, frankly, to have experienced this, and we want to have that same success in Milwaukee with the Brewers. I think we're 13 championships behind, but we're going to try to catch up as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and I would say, Rick, if you want to send those Paul Molitor people to me, I was there for that. So Robin Yount was, you know, played for the Brewers for 20 years. And that's the kind of guys you want to have. And that's why this community has always been so great, because the guys that, you know, really become committed to the community and fall in love with this city and this state, you know, they become legends. And Christian Yelich and Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre and Giannis and people like that all fit into that category. You know, from an Admirals perspective, we're here developing those guys so that when they get to the next level, that's what they turn into. You know, Pekka Rinne here was our goaltender for 3 years, and he's going to be an NHL Hall of Famer someday, and he'll have played his entire career in Nashville. So our job here is to develop them, to get them ready for that next level, to hopefully become those superstars, so those communities can enjoy them for as long as we enjoy Christian Yelich and Giannis and Aaron Rodgers and guys like that.
You know, Jen, I think our fans, particularly here in Wisconsin, they love their players and they love continuity. And if you know, and that's in today's with free agency, it's harder to keep players. And sure. You know, so when you have a player like a Giannis, you know, the other thing I was going to say, and this is I'm a little influenced by my background, having been involved in college athletics. I just think there's something about Giannis. There's just a genuineness to him and a humbleness that he probably wouldn't have if he came up through the United States system and, you know, the AAU system. And college. It's just refreshing to see a superstar that, it's not always all about him.
I think that's a big reason why people were so invested in whether or not he would stay or not, because he's so likable and so easy to root for. And you see the work ethic and you see the humility. And that's a big reason why I think people were like, please stay. There's been this narrative for whatever reason, because you guys know I work on the national level as well. And this narrative of like, oh, Milwaukee or oh, Wisconsin, why would players want to commit there long term? And yet you're seeing that narrative changing. Of, well, look at some of these guys who have signed long-term deals because they know how great it can be to be members of these franchises for an extended period of time. Corey, that's all I have. So I know that we had some audience questions out there. So if there's anybody out there who has questions, I'd love to turn it over to our listeners now and see if they have questions for our esteemed panel.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Jen. Well, we've just got a couple right now. So this one is for Rick. The Brewers have executed a couple of cost-cutting moves this offseason. This comes after a series of other cost-cutting moves in previous seasons. The pandemic certainly can't help the team's finances, but what can you say to encourage fans who fear the Brewers will choose to limit spending and may not be as competitive as in recent seasons?
Yeah, I think what I would say is the reality is we're going to be a competitive team. Our division does not have a clear front runner. The fact is we have a superstar player in Christian Yelich in his prime, and it's incumbent on us to surround him with quality people. David Stearns, our general manager, has done a fabulous job of finding talent that doesn't necessarily have a high dollar value attached to their contract, but they have performed. And the reality is we're always going to be a team that's going to be looking for bargains, looking for extra value from players. We're not necessarily going to be signing the top tier free agents. As Mark said a few minutes ago, often those free agent signings you're paying for past performance, and we just don't have the luxury in Milwaukee to be doing that. But I feel really good about our team on the field for 21. It's in particular because of our pitching depth. We have always been traditionally a team short on pitching and a little bit more hitting focused. The adage in baseball is pitching dominates, and with our pitching staff in 21, we sort of have an ability to form a really good team by adding to our offensive side of the equation and just retaining our star pitchers and being very competitive. So I'm very optimistic about where we're going to be in 21 in terms of competitiveness. Our Mark Antanasio owner wants to win. We're in a mindset of building and retaining and going for that championship. So we're going to have a competitive payroll in 21. I think we're going to be very competitive in 21. I think our division is going to be very competitive. So I think we're going to hopefully have a lot of exciting games, meaningful baseball in September.
Great. Thank you. This question is really to all of you. At which point do you feel that the vaccine will be distributed widely enough when attendees will be welcome at your events again? And when will the seasons regularly resume?
Well, certainly.
Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, I'll start with that one. I mean, I think we're beholden to the health department, frankly. When they feel it's comfortable enough to start relieving the restrictions on in-person attendance, we will stand firmly ready to go. Our mission here is to certainly be ready to play this year, but more importantly, to be ready to start on time in the fall. That's a vital thing for our league. Something we've talked about with the teams in our league. We've got teams in 31 different markets spread over 2 countries. And so there's health departments in every single one of those places that need to sign off on this. So while we might be able to do something here, we go over to Chicago or Grand Rapids or Des Moines or any place like that, the rules will be completely different. So the quicker people take the vaccine that makes people comfortable with the health departments that would allow these things to be eased, we'll be ready to go. But we want to be ready to start the 21-22 season on time in October.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, obviously, none of us are scientists, so I would lean more on Dr. Fauci. And he's made some comments recently where, he thinks we can come back in this summer to start having fans, maybe 50% capacity. And he feels, at least he said, he thinks by the fall, we should be able to have full stadiums for football games. So that's encouraging news, as is, obviously the news recently on the vaccines and how quickly we get the spread out. I think President Biden's right. I mean, we need to continue to mask, though. I think he's asking for us to give him 100 days. And I know everybody has COVID fatigue, but I think we need to really be careful over these next few months, and that should make it better as we go forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously we got to defer to the health officials. I do think that what we can do to encourage people to take the vaccine is going to be really helpful. And frankly, I do think that there's going to be some incentives to get people to take vaccines. I mean, frankly, there may be situations where if you don't take the vaccine, your access to certain venues and certain activities are going to be limited. And obviously, nobody wants that. But the reality is, we need to encourage people to be safe, to be smart. I know our fans want to come back. Our season ticket renewals are about 94%. So that to me says our fan base is very excited, wants to return to the ballpark. Obviously, we want to do something safely and responsibly, and in cooperation with the health department. And again, it's amazing to think we have a vaccine being rolled out, and we obviously understand the priorities for healthcare workers and those at risk, and that's how it should be. But I'm optimistic. As Mark said, Dr. Fauci has expressed some optimism, and again, I think sports can be a great way to heal and bring people together and get us through some difficult times, and to be able to have fans in the stands at Packer games, Admiral games, Bucks games, and Brewers games. Let's try to do everything we can to make that happen.
Rick, are you going to play a full 162 game season?
It's unclear. I think we'd like to. I think that's the goal. The question is, if we start a little bit later, can we play 162 games? It gets a little tough because baseball players don't like football players. We can't play in the snow. NFL players don't seem to care about the weather, but baseball is a summer sport. So if we start late, I do think it causes some challenges. We don't want to be having too many doubleheaders. Baseball, we don't want to have injuries associated with playing too many games in a row. So if we start late, I think it's going to be a challenge mark for us to play 162. But there are people in MLB and with the Players Association, having discussions about how we can play as many games as possible.
Actually, Mark, somebody's asking if you think that you'll have fans at Lambeau during the playoffs.
A lot of that's going to depend on the status of the virus and, the views of our local health officials. So we've got 2 more home games. We're going to continue with invited guests. And then, hopefully we get the bye and that gives us a little more time, and we'd love to have fans, but we're not going to put the community at risk or our players. So, and, as you get into the playoffs, you've got so much at stake. And again, the concern would be, particularly our players catching the virus prior to a playoff game would be a shame.
Yeah, absolutely. Rick, has the Brewers Club ever considered doing a commercial development near the ballpark similar to what the Bucks have done downtown with the Fiserv Forum?
Yeah, I mean, I think we certainly have looked at it. One of the things that makes us a little different is we've got really accessible parking lots. We've got a tailgating culture that certainly Mark's fans also are part of, and we want to be careful about maintaining that tailgating culture and maintaining the ease of parking. So we've spent a lot of investment time and focus on the inside of the ballpark and the ballpark experience. But I wouldn't rule out, potential developments around Miller Park. It's just not something that's been a top of mind priority. And obviously with the COVID pandemic and the challenges that businesses and restaurants and, mass gathering venues have faced, it's probably not something that's going to be in the short-term horizon for us.
Okay. Question for you again, Mark. Can the Packers afford to keep both Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love after Aaron's contract expires?
Well, that's a very good question, Corey. Well, hopefully Aaron is still playing at a very high level, and we have to make that determination. But yeah, if he continues to play the way he is now, I think it may be similar to what you've seen maybe with some of the other teams that have had quarterbacks that continue to play at a high level into their 40s. But yeah, we're excited about the future of Jordan Love too, though. I think obviously we drafted him high, and we think he can be a great player in this league.
Okay. Another one for you, Mark. How do you respond to fans who have expressed concern and criticism about your organization's embrace of the Black Lives Matter movement?
Well, I don't have any sympathy for those people that, in my mind, and we were talking earlier about social justice issues. There are systemic issues in our society that need to be addressed, and we have been very supportive of Black Lives Matter as well as other efforts.
Okay. Somebody started their question by first thanking all of you guys for having such great sports teams in Wisconsin. So thank you. But then they do have a COVID question. They say, how challenging is it to get the players ready to play without crowd noise, and then also to fire them up and get them ready to play just in this situation?
As I said earlier, I mean, it's been a challenge. It was hard for our players. We tried to create a game experience at Miller Park to replicate, the real normalcy. But when you don't have 40,000 people here, I don't care what artificial, choice and music and crowd noise and scoreboard features. It's different. You're just not going to have that same experience. And I do think it affects players differently, and some players can overcome it, and some have struggled with it. But it was a very difficult experience to sit here at the ballpark and watching games and seeing just empty seats. It is deflating. It's challenging. It's a constant reminder of how weird and different the world is right now. And when you're an elite athlete trying to face a 100-mile-an-hour fastball and deciding in a third of a second whether it's a ball or strike, to see empty seats and just a very surrealistic environment, it makes it very difficult. And to the athletes who can overcome that, I give them all the credit in the world, but they're human beings. And the reality is they get distracted and they get mentally affected by the events of the world and thinking about their own families, the fact that they're isolated. So it's hard. Again, it's as we said earlier, it's not something that we all want replicated again. We did it. We navigated through a 60 game schedule with no fans, but I have no appetite for that again. And I don't think our players do either.
Yeah, Corey, the curated music that we pump in across the stadiums, it gets very annoying. It's kind of like somebody scratching their fingernails on the blackboard. But at the end of the day, when we talk to our players about somebody's going to win the Super Bowl, and there's not going to be an asterisk next to it. So the teams that handle the virus well, and a big part of that is learning to play without the motivation that comes from the crowd. It reminds me a lot of like going to high school games or Division III football. It's just it's really funny when sometimes you can hear things at the game that you would never be able to hear before, and sometimes you notice on TV you can hear some of the audibles that quarterbacks or defensive players are making. added a little interest and intrigue. But as Rick said, no, this we hopefully this is just a 1-year thing for us, and we can go back to some type of normalcy.
And somebody else is commenting just how much Milwaukee and Green Bay have grown over the last several years. And they want to know how much of that success is due to our sports teams. Do you guys think that the growth in these cities are because of the sports teams?
Mark, you want to start?
Well, Green Bay, I can't really speak to Milwaukee. Obviously, Green Bay is quite a bit smaller. I don't think Packers have had a huge impact yet, although we're hopeful that with our Titletown development and then Titletown Tech, particularly, we're hopeful in the long run that it'll encourage people to move to the area, particularly young professionals. And then, if we're fortunate to have, some of the startup companies have success, and relocating not only to Green Bay, but Milwaukee and other areas across the state, that could be beneficial in that. So indirectly, I would say we would be helping that.
I think sports teams bring a lot of value to cities, and obviously I'm biased. I'm in the sports business, but I think the community, the state, to help fund Miller Park, to help fund Fiserv Forum. They're not easy to limited resources when there's a lot of needs for public money, but I do think it makes Milwaukee a better city. I think it's a more attractive city, a more attractive destination for people. There is no question that when you have, a superstar like Giannis, and you have a superstar like Aaron Rodgers, you bring attention to municipalities and areas that otherwise would not be getting attention. And that's a good thing. I was actually in Green Bay this weekend for my son's hockey tournament and happened to walk down Titletown, and it was just incredidible. Just that area and how I've noticed Green Bay has.
Did you see how many people are on the skating rink? It's like
unbelievable.
Excuse me, we have a pandemic.
Yeah, then they have this video against the side of the stadium, and it was pretty cold, but it was incredible to be there. And I just think that entertainment, things like that, bringing people together, that helps communities. So I'm one of those people who really believe the power of the sports team, not only for bringing people together, but also for attracting people to destinations like Milwaukee and Bay.
And Corey, the other thing I would add, I really think getting through the pandemic, we're going to see a lot of changes. And I think one of the things you're going to see is more people are going to be working and be able to work virtually. My son-in-law lived and worked in Chicago with my daughter, and he works for BP, and he can work remotely. So they moved from Chicago to Door County, and I think you're going to see more and more people look at leaving bigger cities and maybe coming up to Wisconsin, and because they can work virtually and quality of life is better.
Yeah, and
there is one more question. Oh, I'm sorry, John.
I was just going to say real quick, the theory of the rising tide lifts all boats, I think definitely is true in our state. We are very blessed with having successful sports teams, and I think that just the mindset and the culture of that is such a positive that I think the growth in our communities. People want to be associated with winning. And I think that, what the Brewers have done by being in the playoffs 3 years in a row, what Mark's done in Green Bay, and congratulations on another division title. And, the Bucks, what they've done over the last couple of years, and obviously us from a smaller, at a smaller level, but still having great success. I think this is a sports state. And I think that it's something that does attract people to come here. So we should all be very proud of that.
Absolutely. Thank you. One more quick question for you, Rick. Yelich's contract has been addressed. Who's the next player that you want to lock in?
Yeah, well, I think, we're blessed with some very good young players like Brandon Woodruff, Devon Williams, Keston Hira. I mean, we've got some really good players and some others coming up. The good thing is, David Stearns gets to make those tough calls. And it requires, obviously the organization, but also the player wanting to make a commitment as well. And multi-year contracts for players are very complicated and involve a lot of assessment of risk and reward and sort of forecasting future markets and future opportunities. And, the Christian Yelich situation was somewhat unique, but there are some young players, the Brewers, that we definitely want to keep here for a long term. And the key, obviously, in baseball is also figuring out that sweet spot of when is the right time to lock in a young player, because you're making a financial bet and a financial investment, and these contracts are guaranteed. And unlike Mark, who's got the luxury of being able to have non-guaranteed contracts, again, another reason why the NFL is the perfect model, and we all aspire to it. But I do think, David Stearns in the next, 12 to 18 months is going to figure out which players to try to keep and obviously, try to lock those guys in.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you, John, Mark, and Rick, and to Peter, who was kind enough to break news here today and then leave. And thank you, Jen, for asking the questions earlier today. I hope that you guys all have a happy holiday. And again, thank you for spending some time with us. And to our sponsors, Spectrum News One, Miller Quas, WisPolitics.com, we thank you. And we'll be back in 2021 with more Newsmaker programming. Everyone, have a good rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys. It's good to see you guys.
Yeah.
Guys.
Rick, do we have another Zoom together? It's